afternoon, everybody. This is a Voice of Aggro, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Today is April 25th in the year 2022. It is 4 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to go talk a little about this little game. I don't know if you know the game. It's called Splinterlands, and we're going to have a little chit chat about it. Joining me today is we have sort of a funky little team. We'll have two of our regulars, Nate and Liam, are not able to be here today. Nate is off doing Nate things, and Liam isn't here until the second half of the show. So he'll be coming in a little bit here. So joining me today on the show is going to be WeirdBeard. We're going to have Doogie, and then there's a number of different guests. Two of them are developers that are from the Rapid Development team, and then I got a couple other folks that are here, and excited to go sort of just talk through, all things Splinterlands and what we're trying to piece together. So no, it's not all only beards. There's non-beards as well. Okay, so and that reminds me that we need Magical Dolphin should be here as well. So let's try to poke at her and remind her. Okay, right now. So WeirdBeard. Why don't you go do a quick introduction? Tell us who you are, what you work on, and I don't know. Tell us your top League of Legends character.
Oh God, no. My name's WeirdBeard. I do esports and tournaments here. Pretty much everything competition is starting to fold into what I'm doing. I am a Teemo main because I want you to hate playing with me.
Oh my god! Oh my
And
god!
listen, if I'm gonna be dragged into playing a MOBA, I'm gonna make it as painful as possible, like
Yeah,
situation as possible.
yeah. That instinct. I had a bunch of these accounts that I would lease out like scholars for a while, and I named them all Glitter something, Glitter Unicorn, Glitter Bomb, Glitter something. And I did it so that when you lost to somebody Glitter something.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was like, the humiliation of this has to be horrible. And the same with losing to Teemo. You lost to Teemo. Like, how do you have any self respect?
Yes, I mean, that's all I'm trying to make you feel bad is if you lost to me of all people, that you gotta reevaluate.
Yeah, we should rethink every life choice you've made. I guess we got Doogie here. Doogie, do you want to go do like a quick introduction?
Why not? So, what's going on, everyone? My name is Andrew. I go by Doogie, but I'm the VP of Project Management here at Splinterlands, and my job is to never be noticed and never be seen. If I'm doing my job right, you guys just have a great experience playing the game, while I have WeirdBeard and Aggie and other people constantly yelling at me or feedback to help make sure that we're crushing it. And I too also main Teemo in
Oh my
League
god!
of Legends.
Wow, I didn't know that was a thing. All right, well, one of these days, I think I'm going to have to go do a little bit of streaming for League of Legends. I'm solidly bronze 1 right now, and looking forward to being an over aggressive Sona with whoever chooses to play. All right, so okay, do you guys want to give us like a little bit of like a heads up on, like, let's start with the sort of competitive aspect and what we're doing there. So just how's that going? Like what to you are sort of like the biggest things that we're working on, and how do you feel like they're going?
Well, I could tell you that there's a whole bunch of announcements that we can't talk about, but looking towards the end of next month is going to be very good for you if you're interested
Lit.
in more. But what I can talk about, one thing that we did last week, we changed over all the tournaments to the new tournament icons and the in-game lore tournaments. So now all the tournaments are based off of lore from our lore and creative team. They look pretty dope, I think. They're closer to League of Legends. You should be able to look right at them and tell by the border whether or not it's a bronze or whether or not it's a gold or a diamond or a gold foil tournament. Is it modern? Is it wild? Playing around with those has been really fun, getting them up to par. We still have more tournaments to push out here soon. But the biggest thing on the back end that we've been really kind of doing work towards is figuring out how we're going to be able to start running more KYC tournaments. It's something that the community has been really kind of asking for, and a thing that I think we need to allow for is the space of non KYC as well as KYC tournaments for people that don't want to be competing against alts, bots, things that we would put in the terms of service like win trading, being able to really focus down and figure out on those. We've seen our tournament participation rates still ticking up pretty heavily. One of the big stats that continues to jump out at me is we're shrinking the length of time between when somebody creates an account and when they enter their first tournament. I don't want to speak, like out of stories of just myself or anything, but I've had a lot of people contact me who said, I've never played tournaments before we started talking about them here on the town halls. And that's now like where they spend the majority of their time is tooling around in tournaments, being able to poke around. And it gives an opportunity for some of those players who maybe haven't made that push, who saw like, oh, it's too much to be able to push diamond and everything like that. Well, with our new noob tournaments, you can get your feet wet in those different ones and see if it's really something that you're going to be able to be competitive in. Looking forward, new tournament styles, I guess, is the most I can kind of say on that. But along with that is really kind of branching out and talking to some of these endemic companies that we're hoping to be able to announce and bring on as our esports tournament sponsors here very soon. The discussions in a lot of the tournament channels continue to revolve around how are we taking prize pooling? How do we determine what tournaments get what prize pools? And how do we eventually increase the overall prize pool for all tournaments, right? Like instead of just saying, hey, let's, take tournament funds from this style tournament and put them into these different ones. What are ways that we can start bringing in, more net overall dollars into the ecosystem so that all tournaments earn more?
It
That's
sounds
gonna
like
be
you've had some good conversations with sponsors and whatnot about that. Like, how does that typically go? Are they like, do they know who Splinterlands is? Do they not care? Do they like blockchain? Do they hate it? Like,
I think they're agnostic in the sense that like they know that mainstream gamers have kind of a distaste of NFTs, but that's because they don't see NFTs in gaming. Like they just don't understand it, or they've been exposed to like an Ubisoft, who you know what I mean, like companies that absolutely just screw the pooch on it and give it a bad name. So these companies want to get involved and they really struggle with like, okay, we just want to know what to do because there's a lot of other games in the NFT space that even if like the ones that are even barely qualifiable as games, you take it a step further and try to go like, okay, what's the competitive aspect of it? And a lot of them are just cookie clickers or you know what I mean? Like just log in once a day and here's the thing. So getting these companies to understand like, hey, it's more akin to Hearthstone. It's more akin to like a Magic the Gathering. And here's real competition in the way that people are able to do it. And there's levels to the competition and the game's developed. Like having that kind of a conversation jump starts and misses 90% of the bull stuff that you would normally run into talking to these companies because once they see that it's a game, their eyes just light up and they want to be involved. It's kind of selling them on, hey, we're not just talking about esports in the sense that like people are competing against one another. We're talking about esports and like we want to bring this to life. Like we eventually want to have land tournaments. We want to have the ability for multiple different kinds of competition and multiple tiers of competition because not everybody is investing in the triple maxed out champions level decks. We want to have a competitive scene for players that aren't necessarily those players as well.
sweet. As you're talking to them, is there anything that they're saying? Like, if they do take a look, are they coming and saying yes, or is there like one major objection that you keep hearing over and over from the companies that you're talking to?
Um, there's a few, but I wouldn't say that they're like objections. They're more like education pieces of trying to get them to understand. Like, um, one of the things that a lot of the companies want to do is they instantly see it as like, oh, we have a deal with an influencer. Can you just make an influencer card? And it's like, that's not what we want, right? Like, we're not just trying to do the bring in a couple of flashy people and have it be cool. It's more about building that like grassroots tournament scene to where it's like, okay, doing $100,000 tournament is dope. But if we do that only one time, it only benefits a handful of people. Like, we want to be able to build out infrastructure so that there's leagues. Is there a tier 2 scene? You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be people who are at the top for like our esports scene. Can we build a tier 2 underneath it? Are we able to build it out so that it's not just like prizing? Like, are we able to start bringing in like Razer keyboards? Can we start doing gaming chairs? Can we, you know what I mean? Like, how do we take this and pivot people so that they stop seeing it as like, ooh, fancy new toy, and see it as more like, no, like, it is a fancy new toy, but we need to also do some of the groundwork that like you would see in a League of Legends and a Valorant and an Apex and a Call of Duty, like all those kinds of ones. We want it to be sustainable, and we want it to not just be like diamond plus events. Like, we need to keep in mind that we're creating tournaments and events for players of all skill levels, and not just like who has ginormous stack decks. That's all.
Sounds pretty good.
It's dope.
Along with finding sponsors and spreading that out, I know that you guys have been looking some at the guild brawls. Had a brief conversation with one of the devs about some of the changes that might be happening there. Do you want to give us any kind of alpha on what you're seeing, or maybe not like individual changes if you're not ready to discuss them, but sort of like what are the spiritual priorities that we have as a group in regards to the guilds and the brawls and the team play that's here?
Well, what's really great about guilds and brawls as they stand right now, right, is that we don't have an in-game communication system, right? Like, there's no way to create a friends list. You don't message your buddies and be like, "Hey, I'm getting on. We're gonna go do this event and everything." Like, guilds are one of the strongest touch points for our community to be able to interact with other players and really kind of build, like their own enclaves. Like, you see people who start a guild and all of a sudden they're regularly talking in their own extra Discord about like, "Hey, we're going to enter into this. Oh my gosh, I picked up this card. Hey, this battle was so much fun." Like, it's a really strong way to be able to tie and create sub communities within our overall larger community. And that's kind of the guiding process of like, what can we do to get more people involved outside of like playing through ranked on their own? Like, it's like that social aspect that really needs to start kind of being brought in. And then also making it so that brawls are something that you want to compete in, and it's more than just like a measuring contest. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to actually get in there and give you a reason other than to go, well, the economics just don't make sense. Like, we want to make brawls and competing like so much fun that that economic condition is like, you don't even think about it. It's like when you're buying a Corvette, right? Like, you don't want to think about the price tag. You just want to go, I want to drive it. I want it in my driveway. And so that's like the like monkey brain take that we want people to have with brawls, is that there's so much fun that it's just like, whatever I got to do, I want to be involved because my friends are there. And if your friends are there and we make it easy to be able to connect with those communities, I think everything else just kind of falls into place. I know it sounds really like broad, but it's like, if you're having a good time with your friends, getting really nitpicky about all the other kind of stuff seems to fall to the wayside.
Well, that's some of what I came away from. I was watching like basically binge watched not all of but tons of like game developer convention talks for a while, and went through like hundreds of hours and just trying to get as many different key takeaway from game developers as I could. And one of the ones that I watched was a Clash of Clans one, which is a mobile game, pretty big. And I know it's not quite the same thing, but there's some amount of that kind of like that guild competition, and some of that is built into the game that we're doing. And what they talked a lot about was sort of like, the long tail of the user was really driven by social interaction.
Yes.
And I saw that in my guild where like I played for like 3 years, and it's all the same guys, and I never met them in person. I just hung out and talked crap, and just I don't know. They were the weird friends network that I built in that one little game. And, I walked away from that game pretty easily because, I didn't have any money in it and it didn't really matter. I think I spent like $40 over 5 years playing it or something.
Mhm.
But this game is so different with like, people having hundreds of thousands of dollars and real ability to earn and win, and like connections to whales overseas. Like everything is so real here in ways that it was all just like, throwaway, pretend, or gimmicky there.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. As we get from part of what I'm hoping that we'll be developing over time here is really like increased communication amongst all of our different players to just bridge those gaps and make it. I keep I always, man, I don't want to get too nerdy. I think of it like chelation for the scientists among us, but it's something like, how many touch points do you have with the game? Is it gameplay? That's a touch point. Is it the economy? That's a touch point. Is it the community and just like general crypto knowledge? That's a touch point. But like each person that you're friends with is like another touch point. And the more touch points that you have in this sense, like the harder it is to get away from us. Because you might play a different game for a higher return. You might play a different game for, different mechanics that you're interested in. You might play a different game for a different economy, but like you're only going to find one Matt Clark, and he lives here. And if you want to go interact with Matt, you better go play Splinterlands. And the more that we can foster that, the better.
Yeah, and I mean, like the overall thing that we're doing with not only tournaments but guilds and brawls and everything like that, right? Is that the world is expanding, not like contracting. Like we're not trying to be like, oh, okay, we're gonna stop doing the noob tournaments that we've started running. You know what I mean? And instead, we're gonna pivot to doing something else. It needs to be and then, and that's really what we're trying to build with this community connection. Is like you don't just do a new thing and then segment the players into like, oh, they only played these kinds of tournaments. Another one's only played these kinds of tournaments. It's about like, hey, maybe I have a friend who plays this other kind of tournament that I've never played before, but because I have a friend and I connect with them and we talk about it, he goes, you know what? I think I'm going to enter. I'll enter in that tournament, see my ass, get me, like what I can do. And then he goes back and he tells his friend about it. And then you enter more. And it's like a lot of this is all based off of like ranked and all these other things are touch points and ways that people interact with this game, but it's very like a solo grind. You know what I mean? Like you play by yourself. The moment that you enter tournaments is like a whole different world because you can trash talk. You can literally hit up the people that you play against. You'd be like, I lose to you all the time. I hate it. Or, like in guilds and brawls, like I want to be able to put out like, what's the word that I'm trying to look for? But like, being able to put bounties on certain guilds. So it's like, hey, if we're going to play against, Team Possible, I want to put a million DEC on them, take them down. I'm not in this brawl, but if you beat them, I want to reward you for kicking their ass. Like that's the kind of stuff that can be fun only because it has like player backed storylines. Like if you look at a game like Fortnite, right? The only real community that you get from Fortnite is when they have the big season ending events that everybody goes and watches, or if they drop a new skin and all of a sudden on that day, you and everybody else are wearing the same skin, right? Like there's no tangential storylines that kind of come along with that. Tournaments gives you the option to build. Like esports is built on tournament storylines. So like to be able to have an upstart new player who's like new to the scene and the grizzled old veteran who's going to teach him a lesson, like that kind of stuff sounds lame when we just talk about it, but the moment that we like bring it to life, it becomes real, and then people connect to the game. And that's when content creators don't just make videos around like, I entered into a tournament, it was fun. Like they have to talk about how they felt about it and about like the real kind of human interaction that goes on in these events.
So for either Hive Fest or Steam Fest, I forget which was it when it was. I went out to Thailand. When I was out in Thailand, I watched a bunch of like Muay Thai kickboxing, and it was pretty fun. That whenever they knocked somebody out, they would have like leis that you could put around their neck, and you'd have to you'd buy them, and they'd be like $50 or something, and you would be like, you did such a good job kicking the snot out of that guy. Here's an extra $50 for you.
Yep.
And take a photo with the player or the fighter. Like there's some neat kind of like way that you can interact with these folks that you can't really do in American sports, but we could go mimic parts of that with online fighting, of which to me resonated with like the bounties of like you did such a good job kicking the snot out of Yasik. Here's some cards or something. I don't know. I was entertained by your lineup, sir. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I want to say, because I see a comment right there in the Discord that, we have to wait 2 to 3 years to be able to do tournament stuff. Tournament stuff is so much easier and more fluid to be able to implement and kind of like shape and mold, right? Because it's like its own contained little ecosystem. Every other part of this game has like spreading tendrils that go into everything that happens. Whereas, like, when we talk about like tournaments and brawls and like, I would love to be able to do so that, because all the time guilds say they want to be able to practice brawling against each other just to get better. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to be able to work on stuff like that. I want to be able to work on it. So like, hey, Gladius only tournaments. Why not? Like, let's think of some weird, crazy stuff to be able to do. And it's like those kinds of ideas are easy to implement. Not easy. Don't quote me. But like,
Weird says easy.
Fighting words.
I know. It's easier to like have that be a scope that like, here's the beginning, here's the end, it's a thing, can we do this? As opposed to like, here, let's redo all of ranked rewards, which instantly becomes like a thing, right?
All right. Well, you tossed some fighting words. So, Sicarius, why don't we go introduce you, and you can sort of talk about the team that you're on. And I don't think you've been on air yet. So, if you want to go say who you are, what you do, your introduction, how you found yourself here, and those kinds of things, why don't you give us a hello and tell WeirdBeard why he's right or wrong?
Sure. So I'm Sicarius. I think I've been on an back when we called them AMAs, maybe one time, but it was definitely a few months ago. I've been with Splinterlands for crazy enough, I was thinking about it today, almost a year already. It's been an awesome ride. The company has changed exponentially since I've been here. I have tons of new coworkers. A lot of them here on the call today with me that only started just a few weeks ago. Seeing lots of really cool, bright, talented people come on over that time, and it's been an awesome experience. Agrod, I think you found me, by the way, randomly through Discord.
I think I found you on Hive or something, or through Discord.
Yeah, something like that. But either way, I'm glad you did. It's been a blast.
So what do you do? How would people know your work, or like, I don't know, what's your role? What's your gig?
So originally with Splinterlands, I did a lot of kind of back-end stuff that nobody probably ever noticed, or at least directly. No crazy cool art or UI changes or things like that. I worked on the kind of stuff that made it easier for people like our support team to close tickets faster, for instance. As the game grows and more functions get added, of course, a lot of times more things break as part of that. And at first, a lot of what I worked on was creating buttons and different things for support to go and click and fix those things for our users. And hopefully it got noticed that kind of the time to closing a ticket from when someone would open one to when it would get closed has gotten drastically better, which is awesome. It makes for a better user experience for everyone when I have an issue and it gets solved right away.
Now you're not. Are you still doing that, or you've moved on to a different function? What's your focus now?
Yeah, so I still do some of that stuff, and that was kind of my baby. So I watched over for a little while and helped get more of our new engineers acclimated to kind of that project. But now I'm on a team we call the Rapid Dev team. It's kind of a catch-all team that when we have a project and we want to get it done quick, get it out to our users, it kind of lands in our lap. Sometimes it's the not cool stuff, and sometimes it is.
So WeirdBeard told us it's easy to go develop in tournaments, and that we can expect everything in like by next week.
Easy.
Yeah, you're playing with fire there, WeirdBeard. I think you might have lost some points with the dev team. over this call here.
Busted.
But I would say, in some ways you're right. Tournaments are a little bit more isolated of a project than some of the kind of other systems that drive ranked play and all of these other things. But I think it also introduces a lot of unique issues too. It's an entirely different story, as you said as well. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to kind of make some of those user experiences happen. If it was easy to just have a new live chat where you could see who was online and everything tomorrow, I'm sure we'd make those things happen. But unfortunately, we live in an iterative environment where we're trying to tackle things kind of from the top of the priority list to the bottom, and sometimes some of those things get pushed down a little bit further than other things that we think would be more beneficial to our users or have a bigger user impact at the end of the day.
What do you see as like the highest priority for the team right now, and sort of where are you guys in delivering it?
So I think, and I'll phrase this in a way. There's a lot of announcements coming up, as I think WeirdBeard mentioned earlier, and a lot of this stuff is kind of a little bit of a secret yet. But I think one of the biggest things things that we've been trying to tackle as a development team lately has been, how do we get our players to invest more of their time, or what kind of content can we put out there, and what kind of game changes can we make to have our users want to play the game more? I think what we're taking a look at was a lot of times there were users that were just coming on just to play their daily quests and maybe a tournament here and there, maybe a brawl here and there. But we started thinking about, what kind of changes can we make to the game to make it more interesting to play all day long? We talked about League of Legends earlier, and I personally have put probably way too many hours. I'm sure it's in at least the 3 digits in hours. And what aspect of that game makes me keep coming back to it and keep playing it? And I think that's one of the challenges that we've been trying to tackle as a dev team lately. And we've got some changes that are coming up, and I think some announcements that will be coming up soon that I think our community will be really, really excited for. And
So, am I correct in saying these are the ranked reward changes that you're talking about here?
a lot of that has to do with the ranked reward changes.
I think a lot of folks are excited. We've had some folks talking about it. Now I've heard rumors that we're working on some Guild Brawl, like some changes there, and maybe some additional tournament features. Are those on your team's roadmap as well?
Yeah, some of them are, some of them aren't. But that's pretty high on the priority list as well. That's another thing that I think is super important for our users, and kind of building that community out. And I think there will be some exciting changes coming up in that regard too.
Yeah. So one of the things that's definitely on my brain, like you mentioned the chat system. I think that would be just stellar. To have. I'm thinking of like Blizzard chat, right? Like I log in and I'm able to go talk to people whether they're playing World of Warcraft, or they're playing StarCraft, or whatever. As Splinterlands branches from just a single game to other games, I want to be able to go communicate with all my friends across whatever game and platform. And I also I want to make sure that like who I'm talking to is who I think it is, right? So having this all be tied back to like the ID layer that comes from the layer one of the Hive blockchain, or whatever blockchain we're operating on, like that's a huge piece of this to me too. That's how you prevent scams, especially when like crypto and money is involved. So have you guys started giving that thought? I mean, I know that you mentioned it briefly, but is that Is that sort of anywhere on the radar, or people started toying around with that some?
Yeah, it's definitely on the radar, and a lot of our players are probably familiar. The guild system does have a little bit of a chat, but we've had ideas over time that originated with AMAs and things like that, where there's no good way to see if your friend is online and playing, um, and kind of chat with them directly, and um, invite them to do some challenge rounds with you, or join a tournament or some of those things. And it is definitely on our radar. Um, I think some of the issues that we're trying to tackle too are maybe a little less interesting, but on the back end, and even when I first started Splinterlands, uh, I don't know what the exact number is, but we're in the not hundreds of thousands of players, but tens of thousands of players, and suddenly we were at the hundreds of thousands of players. And one of the biggest issues I think came up with that is scaling. And unfortunately, that has to take our priority sometimes, just because, uh, at the end of the day, a game is no a game with a chat system is no good if the game doesn't work at all. you know,
Yeah.
as
Yeah. How
far as that
many?
goes.
I've heard different numbers on this. Do you know how many servers it takes to run Splinterlands right now?
Let me take a look over at my other screen here. I
Ooh.
think I could make a rough guesstimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The highest number I've heard is potentially 90. Do you think that's accurate in that ballpark?
I don't know if it's quite that much, but it's definitely more than half that,
All right.
from the looks of it. And I won't bore you by counting this out over on my screen over here. uh, yeah, uh, a lot of projects, especially at the smaller stages that we were, um, we definitely didn't have this many servers when I started. I can tell you that much. And we had to start creating these new instances, just like almost in a panic in a way, as the user number just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, it's a crazy amount of architecture. And we have a whole infrastructure team that has to kind of keep track of all of these different server instances. And if we have a little bit of downtime and we have to restart some stuff, you guys have probably noticed, the game might be out 10-20 minutes, and that's because it's not like we can flip a switch and the one instance server instance restarts. We have to go through and actually restart all of that different stuff. Uh, so it's definitely an undertaking.
Now I got another one of your devs here with us. That's Farpetrad. I hope I just pronounced that right. Can you come on and sort of introduce yourself as well?
Hello, I'm Farpetrad or Neil. I've been here with Splinterlands for just about a month now.
And you're working on the same team, right?
Yeah, I'm also on the rapid response or rapid development team.
When you guys are coding, so how many devs are on that team right now?
I believe 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was between 4 and 6. All right. So are you guys doing? Are you completely off on your own in your own little code base on the one thing that you guys are working on, or are you guys like team working as you're doing stuff? What's that look like?
So that really depends on what we're working on. Like the rank reward system has been a team effort to get done. But then there's been other things that have just been, get out there and get it done.
Which project have you spent the most time working on?
So far I've done all my work on the actual Splinterlands site and back end, and I'm just starting to work on the admin tools.
So what if a player has touched your code? What do you think the most likely spot that they've experienced your handiwork would be?
So probably the most noticeable thing is I added accessibility controls for the team selection so that players that have to use a screen reader can actually play the game now.
Hey, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember there's a couple of blind players that I know of personally that have been asking me for stuff like that for forever, and it's hard to like prioritize, but that's fantastic, and I'm stoked we have it. And I did a lot of like ed tech stuff, and there will always be college students that would basically block sales of a certain product if it didn't have accessibility. So that's one of the things that's sort of been on my back burner and brain. Glad to see you actually get that in there.
Yeah, it's definitely an awesome thing to add because, it opens the game to so many more people and just gives, better opportunity to people.
So now, what do you if that's done? I think you said what your next project is, or what's your next baby that you think you're working on, or is that just
I've
like a continuous project?
So I've been working on the ranked rewards, but I'm also now working on getting API documentation for our third party developers, as well as just our internal documentation.
Nice. What is the current state of that? How would you describe it?
So it's pretty much in its infancy. I just turned on like Swagger documentation before the weekend, and I've been going through there today, kind of playing with it, making sure I can actually send requests and that they work, and doing some general cleanup.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we've not done tons of the documenting and more of the, you'll learn it as you'll go, damn it.
Yeah,
So
that
hopefully,
that was definitely my experience before I joined the team. Was just trial and error, looking at web calls and trying to reproduce them.
Like I'll be in talks with people, and that's what we'll tell them. And I'm like face palming off screen, but I'm like, it'll be nice to have some documentation to go through it. Especially like third party developers of like, hey, I'm trying to go manage a whole group of scholars, and we're like, great. And they're like, how does any of this work? And you're like, have you looked at the Explorer for the Hive blockchain of like the Steam Monsters account? Have you considered reverse engineering all of it yourself? that's that's sometimes the state of that.
Yeah, there's so much that being able to do that by hand would probably take a really long time. So luckily, I've been using some auto tools to get this done. But like I said, they definitely need some tweaks because it doesn't work perfectly.
So so for the two folks that are on the rapid deployment team, what is cool about it, and then is there some part of like the rapid development team that's frustrating?
So I think it's cool that we're constantly getting to work on different pieces of the application. So it's not like you have any kind of chance to get bored. You're always being challenged to learn new things and to be able to contribute to those new areas. So you have to be able to, think fast and learn, and it's just a great experience.
Yeah. Sicarius, what about you, bud?
Yeah, I can speak to that too. And I've been on a few different teams since starting here at Splinterlands as the structure has changed around. And I'm actually probably transitioning to a different team, in the next couple of weeks or so here. Uh, so that Neil and maybe some others might take up my spot. Uh, but what I love about it, and Neil spoke to this, is we get to work on different things all the time, but not. I think it's not just that's exciting about it, but the kind of stuff that we generally work on to put out there right away are very real problems that maybe our community is experiencing now that really need to get fixed before the next release, where um, some very particular function isn't working, or hey, I can't download my tax forms for previous years, and I forgot to do that last year. These different things that come up very quickly, and challenges that we don't necessarily have a couple of weeks always to solve. It's things that we need to figure out and get out there very quickly. uh, I think one of my biggest frustrations, uh, is that, and it's been a challenge, ever since working with Splinterlands, is I'm used to some very, very modern, I'll say, code frameworks, and that's a strong word in tech because everything changes all the time. And halfway through building an application, the new latest and greatest framework or tools or whatnot get created, and then you're like, oh shoot, well I'm already halfway done using the last latest and greatest tools and framework. Uh, Splinterlands is maybe a couple of iterations behind on the
Matt's not shy about, like, I hadn't coded in about a decade, but I coded it in the language I was most familiar with, which was like, 2018's like highest level, or like a couple years back from 2018 JavaScript.
yeah, I think probably a good majority of the code base is written in, we call it ES 2015 or ES5. I think it's ES5. It might be ES4. I think we're on ES7 now, if I'm not mistaken. There's been new iterations like every year the last 2 years or so. But I think beyond that is basically the whole game and is written without frameworks. And I think if there's any developers here, Express is about the only kind of framework that we use. Other than that, and honestly, it's genius. There's some things that Matt has done that I've taken a look at and gone, wow, I've never seen it code this cool ever. And he's a wizard. He really is.
He's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that try to do this stuff and they're like, I made an NFT platform. Is that good enough? Like, there's just not, it's hard to find Matts of the world.
Absolutely, and we call you guys wizards for a reason, and that's because you guys do some pretty magical stuff. The way that we could turn an NFT blockchain game in this industry that most lay people don't understand at all into a game that people can have fun with and whatnot with limited to no technical experience is definitely amazing in and of itself, but there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes. And, a lot of these third-party tools and whatnot out there, even that I started using before working with Splinterlands, were truly created by Matt and some of these kind of originators on the Steam blockchain and then the Hive blockchain. And it's awesome. So, I mean, this has stemmed into a whole ecosystem just from some crazy cool tools and whatnot that Matt
So
and others have made.
a lot of what I witnessed with development, I do Hive Engine stuff and I do Splinterlands stuff and follow along as much as I can. And a lot of it is like, well, I found this over here and we use this snippet of code to do this thing. And there's a lot of like that, grab it from somebody else's code, implement it into yours and do something awesome. And I feel like with Matt and like what we've done here, there hasn't been a ton of that. And like, you really need some like star kind of developer to be able to invent this stuff from scratch and put it out there.
I definitely agree. They're good code should be modular, and it's awesome to be able to take parts of one app and integrate it into your application and these kind of things. But I think that there are probably some unique problems at the beginning. The biggest one probably being that none of this kind of stuff had existed before. And so there was no choice except to make it. And I would say there are some things in our code base too that, we took the approach of, I don't want to say reinventing the wheel, but in some ways, in parts of our application we did. But it's unique and it's its own animal, and it's like I said, it's impressive even.
Well, that's, people keep asking about land, and the land team isn't on right now, but a bunch of what's happening with the land team is that some of what Sicarius is describing is that, we have this kind of wonky code base that is a little bit older in terms of the frameworks and the language and how they do things that Matt was really good at, but that, if you come out of college, nobody teaches you do it this way anymore. So, we have to go kind of reinvent some of this code from not quite scratch, because we already know what we want to do, but we have to kind of modernize it to make sure that it's kind of up to the standards of how everybody's coding right now. And so some of that is about scalability. Some of that is just about clean code. Some of that is about breaking it up into different servers so that no one server is, completely obscured by too many different functions. And we got to kind of go through and make sure that this stuff works well and scales and functions, and other people that aren't Matt know how to actually integrate this code and work on it. So, I witnessed this with Steemit a lot, where they'd say, we're going to go do this big thing. And then they get into it and realize the big thing that they want to do, it has some absurd amount of story points in an agile development framework. And you actually have to break it down into 4 other big projects. And you had to go get all 4 of those big projects working before your end goal. Now, they sucked at communicating at that. And maybe we're not phenomenal, but I'm trying to let you know that, to get land out, you need things like a non-card market. And so that's not one of the only pieces, but that's a big piece. In order to get the non-card market out, you have to go get everything functioning at a way that you can do enough processing to handle this many components and this many transactions, which means that you have to go make the market more efficient to be able to make the non-card market, to be able to stick it on the front end. So, and hopefully some of this discussion around the code that we've written and how we got to this place helps inform the decisions that we have to make in terms of when we release land, how do we make sure it's awesome? Could we release something sooner and just force Matt to code it up himself and put it out? Yes, but that it wouldn't actually solve the long-term scalability of making sure that land is awesome and can grow in lots of features that don't just rely on Matt. Did I miss anything there?
I think you hit it right on the head, and it's something that I'm personally really excited about, and for more reasons than just it's frameworks and code and style that even I'm personally familiar with. I'm a little bit younger than some of the devs on our team, but I mean, at the end of the day, there'll always be developer preference. There'll always be different frameworks and these kind of things, but I think the coolest part to all of this is it'll make our code more composable, and kind of split into chunks so that we don't have to have as long of release cycles. Maybe eventually we'll be able to kind of coordinate deployments among the team a little bit better, and also as we adapt to newer frameworks and some of these kind of things, we'll open ourselves up to cool new tools that we couldn't use before because we weren't using these newer frameworks or whatnot. So it's more exciting than it sounds to the end user, because it's going to enable us as a team to really get cooler things out there faster, easier, and better than before, with hopefully less issues as well.
Wrath, I think you're still here. Are you able to come on?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you want to introduce yourself, and then a lot of what you do feeds into the teams that we've heard about tell you about the frustration of working on the code and building these things. I want to kind of step back a little bit in terms of and lift our skirt or pull back the curtain and say, this is how we make decisions. This is how our team kind of prioritizes and does things. And you're kind of one of the dudes that's really helping to shape that. So if you want to go tell us your name, tell us who you are, and sort of walk us through a day in the life of, I think that might help people understand just the process that we go by and how we make the Splinterlands sausage.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Wrath, or John, and I'm a product owner here with Splinterlands. I've been here, I think, officially about 3 weeks. And so
now hold on.
Product owner.
Before you get too far, product owner, I don't think is like really widely known outside of like people that live in software circles. So if you say I'm a product owner, I don't think anybody, some people might know, but not a lot of people are going to know what that is. So can you give us a little bit more of a job description of like what is a product owner, and then how did you get this job, and like what was your background leading into it?
Sure. So for product owner, the ultimate goal of the product owner is to maximize value to the products. And so what that means is you're kind of this intersection between the development world, the business world, and the customer. So you're kind of blending all that together. Things you do on a day-to-day basis to really maximize that value is uh, kind of owning the funnel from idea through prioritization through development. And so that's finding user stories that the devs are going to work on, prioritizing work, managing the backlog of work that they have so that the devs really can just go in there, see what's on the docket, and do the coding that they need and have all the requirements, not as much back and forth needed. Yeah, product owner really is kind of that middle ground between all the different roles, and the ultimate goal is to build out that roadmap, prioritize things, get it through the funnel, get it developed.
So what was your background? Were you a product owner before this? How did you slink into the product owner role here?
Yeah, so I was a product manager previously in healthcare IT, worked on radiology products such as natural language processing applications, some workflow efficiency products. But really, crypto gaming combines two of my passions. Been involved with crypto personally since about 2015, and then gaming my entire life. So this was kind of a dream situation to be able to get into.
How much does your background help you in this? I mean, like, I've watched people from ed tech, and I think they do pretty good. I've watched people from fintech. I think they do great. I haven't hired a lot of like actual game developers into the company. I get kind of nervous about them. Like, how do you feel like the transition from healthcare to crypto gaming, has that worked, or is there enough overlap there?
Yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, it's about understanding the product and the pain points of the customer, and having soft skills like listening and things like that. And so I think whether it's product owner, whether it's project management, you have the core skill sets, and then you take the topics and adapt them. So having gamed my whole life, having been in crypto since 2015, I think that has helped me transition more than necessarily the healthcare, but having the background in product ownership from the healthcare side, and how different corporations operate, how different organizations operate, helps translate into what can be done here.
So we have 4 product teams that are operating right now that are like developer facing, and probably another 10 creative teams that feed into those almost developer led projects or something. I don't quite know. I don't have the language to describe it yet, but your head is nodding, so maybe I'm not screwing it up that badly. How do you navigate? Where does the prioritization come from? And I know that I give some like high level strategic objectives, but I'm certainly not in the weeds. I'm not telling people do this next, do that next. Like, how do you guys come across your roadmap for what we're prioritizing? What are the steps? Like, how detailed are you tracking this down? Are you down to the line of code that we need? Are you down to the feature set? Are you down to just a story? And how many of these teams are you kind of simultaneously working with or on?
Yeah, for sure. So technically I'm on all of them along with Homestead. So he's the other product owner. In terms of prioritization, it's really a team game, right? Whether it's coming from you or Matt or Richard as stakeholders, or hearing the issues that come in from support. Like if you hear a pain point over and over and over again, and then it's really taking a step back and seeing which is going to drive the most value to the overall product. And so right now, I will say we have a decent way to go on internal processes. I see a lot of opportunity for improvement. And a lot of that is clearing up cross-team communication, getting better at our sprint management, things like that. And just like, well, I guess we moved to Agile maybe 2 months ago. it's all about iteration. And so even internal processes, you go through a sprint, you figure out what worked, what didn't work, you iterate on it. And that's also where a product owner can provide some value. So in terms of prioritization,
we have like a little mini team right here, right? So we have WeirdBeard, who has a whole bunch of needs around brawls and tournaments, and we want to get things coded, right? We want a whole league set of rules that you can follow for tournaments, for brawls. We want some of the economy to change. So if he has these ideas, he goes and he's filtered this through the community. The next step is that he brings that to you and John. Is that?
Yeah, in an ideal world where the funnel is set up completely streamlined, yeah, it can come to me. It can come through one of our stakeholders, either Matt and Richard. We still kind of have somewhat of an approval process for higher level things. But yeah, and then it ultimately comes down to you have X number of resources, you have Y number of products, and where does it fall in the priority?
So
what's going to add the most value?
So what are your chief decision making things? So you have guilds, brawls, user facing market features. You have back end scaling problems. You have like a million different things that we could come to when it gets time to be like, all right, Sicarius, this is what we want to work on this week. Or hey, Farpetrad, this is what we want to do. I think I just butchered your name, Farpetrad. How do you like? What is the basis of decision making? Like, what are you prioritizing, and in terms of like value to the user, or like what's the, when you think this is what we need to get out first, like what is the key value that you're really trying to prioritize?
It's a really good question. And I will say it's more of an art than a science, which isn't always a great term. One of the things I want to try to work out that I know Pluck's working on to make it more science is having more robust analytics, so you can really measure the impact that each thing has, and you can learn from that. And we do have some analytics, but we can make it a lot more robust so that you can actually make those data-driven decisions to help prioritization. But yeah, a lot of it is an art. You have to weigh whether you're going to do take care of some tech debt, like you've mentioned with the non-card market. We need to go to a tech modernization. We need to handle the back end stuff and make it more modern before we can get some more of those features out. So you have to weigh that. You have to weigh whether it's going to impact player experience, whether it's going to impact investor experience, especially in the crypto market. There's so many different user bases, user personas. You just have people who are NFT collectors. You have people who are playing the game. You have SPS investors that are all involved in the Splinterlands ecosystem. So there's no real definitive way to say this is number one priority. You come together as a team. It's not just me making a decision. We're bouncing it off of all the different stakeholders, getting a general feel of what's going to move the yardstick the most, and then going with that.
Yeah, in the I guess as like managing director for Hive Engine, I've made a bunch of these decisions, and when I try to do it and serve in that product owner role, I basically am asking myself, what is going to get the highest level of value to the people that are in this ecosystem for the least amount of developer time, and I try to work through it that way. And value in that case is like maximizing tradability, maximizing like what kinds of smart contracts exist, different features that they need, reward systems. But my main thought is always around like, here's something cool and there's something cool. Which of these two cool things can I do faster for less money, get it out like quickly and functioning? And if something is like, we'll get $10 million more in the diesel pools, but it'll take a year, or we'll get $1 million more and it'll take a month. I typically go for the one that's like the faster, bigger bang or not even bigger bang, but just trying to prioritize. Like, do you think of it that way too? Because I've never been, I just am freaking winging this. You're like the professional guy doing this. What's your, does that sound right? Or do you, do you have a different metric that you go by, or?
No, yeah, that absolutely sounds correct for the most part. Obviously, there are decisions that you have to make, like we touched on for tech debt in the non-card market, like where the immediate return will be good, but what that sets us up for in the future is going to be a lot more things, as Sicarius pointed out, and so things like that are a little bit hard to measure when you have the unknown out there, but you know you need to tackle it, and it's a hard or a lot of work and hard work to actually get done when you could be doing things that might deliver a lot more short-term value for less work. So it's really kind of weighing the entire ecosystem of work that's out there. But for the most part, you're correct for the value aspect.
Is there something that we're working on right now in one of these teams that you're like most excited about or think is going to have like the biggest impact out of any of these projects?
And for me personally, getting more analytics. But overall, I think rank rewards is huge in terms of a player-based perspective. And honestly, I think tech modernization is huge. Being able to get to that new framework, as Sicarius mentioned, where it's a lot more modular and you can deploy things more rapidly without fear of breaking things as you go. That'll allow us to develop more quickly, more efficiently, and really release more often.
So the rank rewards are supposed to be either like sometime next month, I think. Is that accurate? You're nodding.
That's correct.
So that's not far from the world. Like, what's your read on sort of the tech modernization? Like, I know that tech modernization is sort of like a never-ending problem. But when is a milestone that you can look at and be like, all right, the next major piece of this looks to be done by X, and like how far from X do you think we really are?
Yeah, and so that kind of brings up an important point of why the tech modernization is important. So right now, a lot of our releases are dependent on each other. So we have rank rewards looking next month. That's going to create a lot of merge conflicts that Cryptomancer is going to have to go back in and fix up for Modern Wild. Modern Wild's going to impact some of what we've done on tech modernization. And so we kind of have these upcoming releases that are scaled that way. So tech modernization will come after Modern Wild. It shouldn't be too far behind rank reward, depending on how many merge conflicts we have. Most of that's almost fully complete, just depending on that release. And so there are the dependencies on how much code is changing when the previous one is released. But it shouldn't follow too much longer because rank rewards we're looking at sometime next month. Modern Wild will be soon after. Obviously, we have the validator cell in there as well, so we haven't necessarily figured out the exact dates of all of these. But tech modernization, we have a good core complete, but again, it's dependent on Modern Wild being released and making some adjustments.
I'm pretty excited for these things to be decoupled, right? Like, I don't know. I think it'll just make it so that you guys are free to get this piece rolling without worried about like, oh, I guess we are going to have to go change all of the code base for all of the different people. Sorry about that, Mancer. You're going to have to recode this thing like 2 or 3 more times. I mean, I've been watching. I'm still a little tangential to the development and try not to be in the weeds on it, but try to be involved enough to be like, oh, we should probably do this.
Yeah.
Anything that we're not doing that you wish we were? Like what do we have a gap that, hey, I'm CEO, sometimes I can do things around here. Anything that you would want in my brain and be like, this guy needs to know X to make sure that things go faster, better, whatever?
Yeah, I think it's just continually refining our internal processes, whether it's getting analytics, whether it's improving chains of communication, whether it's finding goals so that we're all rowing oars together. I think a lot of that internal stuff that you don't necessarily see on the back end or on the front end will help us kind of get in a better rhythm. And we're getting there. Just since I've been on board, I've seen massive steps towards that. With Agile just being really 2 months old, there's been a lot of progress made there. So just continually iterating on that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing I can do there is stay the hell out of it. Let the guys do it. So people may not know this, but I am not the last thing I will ever be is a micromanager. Geez, it's all about like, how can I find the most competent people around and give them the most delegated authority possible? And then it involves a fair amount of prayer to be like, let's hope that they don't destroy everything we built. But thus far, this is what happens when you're clear on your mission, when you're clear on the objectives, when you're clear on the goals, and we're honest and open about it. I mean, if your thing isn't peace, prosperity, and freedom, this is probably the wrong place. If you don't like crypto, this is the wrong place. We're not trying to hide any of this crap. So if you guys are able to kind of come together with that, it should make this kind of go smoothly. And in a lot of ways, I'm not an amazing product manager. I don't know any code, and I just gotta I can sell like crazy, and I can build a lot of teams. So hopefully I get the right people and the right pieces in place. And one of my favorite phrases that I've learned kicked in of it's about theater, but I think the same really applies here. Of 90% of directing is casting. And you get the right people in, and I don't have to sit there and babysit anything. We just let the smart guys, the nerds in the room, do it. Hey, WeirdBeard, if you're talking, I think you're muted. Are you talking to me?
I was yelling at my 10-year-old daughter or my 11-year-old daughter. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you should do it on air. Let's all hear this. Hey, get back.
She's drumming. For her birthday, we got her like really fancy, expensive ramen bowls, and she's apparently taking the chopsticks and playing them as drums instead.
He says she's 10.
Smart.
She's 11 now. So
I just did the same thing for my 10-ish-year-old.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like the ramen age.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's bizarre. But I just did the same thing. Yeah. All right. So Doogie's in here. The Doogie, we've kind of talked through this, and you're again another one of these touch points. This is kind of like I didn't know how this discussion would go, but getting a couple devs talking about what they're doing on the team, to go back a step to go figure out like where is some of the priority coming from and how do we get there. And you're also like working on all these teams and trying to keep people on budget, on time. Like what are your biggest hurdles that you're facing? And like what, I guess you should probably tell people that are noobs like what your job is here and who you are. But what are your biggest hurdles and what like what are you doing, or how does this team try to like face them, meet them head on, or run away from them completely?
All right, so I'll start with the easy part, the introduction, which is again, I'm Andrew. I go by Doogie, but I'm the VP of project management here with the company. And Aggie kind of hit on it already, but like my whole focus in my job here is to help make sure that we are delivering products on time with the right features at the right time, and making sure that we're serving the community as best we can.
It's got to be a weird gig, because Matt in particular is like, that thing in corporate life where like they tell you, here is your deadline, go meet it, and it's like everything is whips and beat the employees until you hit that one deadline. Like we don't really function that way. So how do you do this with like how do you set deadlines with people? How do you set like what? One of the things that Hardpoint likes to say is something like, you tell me the deadline and I'll tell you the feature set we deliver. Right. So like, you're not, it's not so much as just like, all right, well, here we have to ship code. The question is going to be, well, how much code are you looking to ship? Because this is a function of time, money, and talented employees. How the hell are you even setting this stuff in this weird space? And I guess even with the extra caveat of basically every single deadline I've ever thought that I might make in blockchain development is always like far longer than I ever originally gave it credit for. So how do you do it? Like, how do we make the sausage on this as a team and as a group?
So Oh man, it's such a good question. Like, I come from a very different world, right? Like, coming from mission planning and mission planning cell, like running the environment where we came up with solutions to world problems or whatever. With
And just to be clear, that's military speak, right?
Yep.
Your mission planning being, uh, was that Air Force? Was that
Air Force, and just coming up with it was always one of those, like, we had to be ready to go anywhere in the world within X number of hours, and then my job primarily was to help herd all of the cats for that, whether it's like tankers to give airplanes gas or however we would go and do anything. But here it's completely different because it's not so much like the our teams here are based on our people, and we've held that true to our company's values. Like, people are the value, and so each team delivers and can work on something at different paces. So when it comes down to like a feature set or something that we want to see us as a game company release to the community, it's all about like bringing everyone in and going, okay, hey, where are we at? What are we missing? What do we need to do? What kind of conflicts are we running into between us doing this here? And would that have a domino effect for the other teams that are working on tech modernization or something else along those lines? And I'll say this much too, because I know the team is pretty quiet about it, but like our devs and the people that we have are pretty brilliant. Some of them have helped build other community tools such as card auctions, and John's coming from a background of doing, honest to God, more agile and Scrum Master like project management than I have, and it's amazing to see how everybody's still coming together respectfully and helping find the right path and find the right way to help this company keep growing and moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, one of the so I think I shared this story before, but back in high school, I ended up having to go be an admissions helper to the private high school I went to, and I basically came away with there are two main questions that I formed then, and now I'm up to three. The first one is, can they do the work? The second one is, do I want them to do the work next to me? And the third now is, can I afford to hire them? And those are kind of my big three questions. And the people, hopefully that kind of question making has made its way into our hiring process, and the people that are in charge of that and are asking those really basic questions of, do I think that they're competent enough to do the challenging work that we have here? And it's not so much that like the circumstances are grueling, and oftentimes when it's grueling, it's self-imposed. I'm almost never sitting there being like cracking the whip, being like, hey, get this damn thing out there tomorrow. That's not how I operate. That's not how basically anybody here operates. But man, the like internal whipping that people will give themselves to go meet aggressive deadlines. It's oftentimes we're here being like, hey, maybe you should take a break, dude. It can be a savage, self-imposed pace. But I guess one of the things that I haven't heard you say that I hope is in there is that it really is an iterative process of like, here's where we think this is what, and we have to get better at reporting this, but we just got, I know that we call it the Tech 360, and it's the reporting on sort of like, where are the product groups at? What are we working on? What are we doing? And we kind of want to get that out there monthly. And to me, like I ultimately think it's almost impossible to get it right. You're just not going to get this stuff right. We're going to have a minority of projects that get done early, and you're going to have a majority of projects that get done late, because you keep discovering, oh crap, there's 10 other things I got to do before I can make that work. But I think the big piece to me is that we just communicate it. right? And like whenever we're late, we just own it and say, hey, here are the 4 other things we had to do to make it work. This is our timeline. This is our roadmap. This is where we're at. And hopefully, as you're having those discussions with the smart team and the people that are passionate and put in the hours, you're also just like, you're all saying what we want is a really good user experience for the player. And like deadlines, timelines, and all that, like it's important, but it's a private company. We make money. It's not the goal is not be the richest company on the planet. The goal is let's make the coolest freaking game for the community that we can. And that means we get the feature set out there. And, if we're off by a month, but it's awesome in a month, we'll go do it in a month, but I think, my hope is that now that we have Tech 360, we'll have another board meeting on it on not this Thursday, but next. So my next group meeting on that at the board level will be May 5th. And then hopefully by mid-May, we'll go put out an update to where we are in the product roadmap. And we'll do that on a monthly basis and, do our best at, it's all guesswork, right? This is all crystal balls. It's all like, hey, shake the 8 ball. I think it's a month. And you're like, all right, well, yeah. Does that make sense? Or am I nuts? Did I miss it? Like,
well, I was going to say, like, literally, my experience with Doogie for the past 2 weeks has been this. Like, we, like on tournaments, a lot of times we will be sitting and talking in a group of people on the marketing team with like Liam or with Robbie, who does our partnerships and stuff, and be like, that's a good idea. And then it's literally like a Slack message right afterwards, be like, what do we do? Because we're stupid and we don't know how to make this happen. Can you please guide me in what I need to do? And, Doogie and the product team, a lot of it is just trying to, okay, here's the steps, dum-dums, of how you go from point A to point Z and how you make it happen. And it's a lot of kind of filtering through things like that and understanding that, like, hey, what's the squish that we can work with that? Like, if you tell me 4 weeks, I'm going to plan 6 weeks just because there's going to be something in there, and trying to find it that it's like, it's way more than just like, okay, here's the thing, give me 4 weeks, it's done. Like, I'm not just placing an Etsy order and I can wait for it to show up on my doorstep, right? Like, it's okay, we have a plan of a thing that we hope is going to happen. Here's the things that we have to get done. What can we try to get done? And that's the, the whole goal is just what's the best way to make it go, essentially.
And it hits the nail on the head, right? Like, between gosh, Rick, we've had so many conversations here. I say so many, and like it's been thousands, but we're talking about how do we do this, and we have this marketing strategy and goal in mind, and then I'm working with John, who we've got in the call here, and then also like Isaiah, who's working on one of the product teams, to be like, hey, here we have some requests. How can we go complete this? What do we need to do? And like, as a person who's not the expert, I'm not Matt. I didn't build this, the core and the foundation of this game as we all experience it. But I'm like, oh well, this should be easy. And then I realized, like, as I talked to all these other talented people across our group, like, okay, well, it's maybe not so easy. Okay, how do we plan this? How do we go execute these different things? And even like Eggy was talking about the Tech 360, and like that's a product that I've been building with Alicia, or Chicklet. She's the VP of product design here, and we're putting all this data together. And I even have help because I've had 6 hours of meetings today. I've got another meeting after this, and then I'm putting all this together to prepare to send upwards tomorrow for review and edits, to then get to the board and leadership. Like, it's such a massive team lift to get all these pieces coming together, and then that Tech 360 data is something that we want to be able to start sharing with the community as well. Like, we've just gone from it being going to the board to going to the board and the company. And then, pretty soon here, the community is going to be able to see like how we're progressing and what we're looking at internally. And it's a challenge every day. Like I never quite know what challenges I'm going to face or what's going to hit the most in terms of a user story or a need that our community has. And it's pretty fun to either sit there and be like, all right, let me walk into this room of really smart devs virtually on Slack or something. Be like, hey, I found something and I think it's this. And I know I'm just murdered for that. Like, it's so stupid. But then I have all these smart people come in and be like, no, it's this. What about this? You didn't think about this. And like the way that we problem solve and help continue to make sure that our company's going in the right direction is just, it's really freaking fantastic. I've loved it.
Awesome. All right. I think I've spoken to all the people here. I think you guys have all gotten a sense of like how we make some sausage here. It's been pretty nice to have so many different roles here today to kind of talk through how we make things and how we do things. I'm still pretty convinced that the some of the changes that we made a couple months ago are really starting to take hold now. The devs, we just recently doubled our dev team, basically, maybe 50% our dev team, or 150% if you think about it in the growth perspective. So we've got a lot of people. We have to onboard them. They're starting to make like useful code and not just hang out in the multiple tomes of War and Peace that is our code base. We're trying to make this so that you don't have to be familiar with everything. You can just kind of read into that one section, but even that takes work to do. But I think we're crawling our way out of the technical debt that we had over the last couple of years, and we're getting the team and getting the people. And as we get all of this in place, it's going to make things go faster and faster. That is my sense. All of this is to get more code shipped faster, so that there's more game modes, more battles, more utility, more everything. And in some ways it means there's more stuff that we get to sell, but in more ways there's stuff that you guys get to sell each other, and really just try to make it so that this game is constantly evolving and we're getting new components. And one day people are going to live full-time jobs in here, making more money than they ever would in the real world doing just Splinterlands all day. And we'll do it internationally and help people all over the world that have internet access live high-quality lives. And that's the mission, and that's the dream. So with that, next up, I want to go answer some of the questions. They didn't look that bad, which is why I went a little bit over here. But there we go. There we go. Bulldog is doing it. So let's go answer some of these questions. I'm going to try to fly through them, and hopefully I can get at least 20 minutes of just, anybody in the audience asking questions. All right. So SPS validator nodes. So just in case you don't know, I'm going to ignore the questions in chat until the last section. So the first section is a town hall. The second section is a pre-collected questions. I don't see these before they just get to me. Beth or Bulldog or somebody goes through and they compile the questions, but their goal is not to like edit these things. I'm like the most transparent guy in the business. When we take this stuff to the board, I'm always advocating like, let's just show it as is. And they're like, hey, those are private company numbers. And I'm like, I don't care. Just show it all. So I'm like the most I try to be the most transparent member on the team. So here we go. So this portion is just the pre-recorded questions. And then at the end, it'll be open season on Aggie and team. Since Splinterlands is going to run its own set of validators as a Hive sidechain, I'm wondering why the team initially decided to build on Steam instead of EOS or Tron, perhaps. And what are your views on other chains that other crypto games are using today, like Polygon, IMX, BSC, or Avalanche? Would Splinterlands node architecture allow for compatibility with other layer 1 blockchains, or is it tailor-made for Hive? Let's say SPS holders vote to become a Solana sidechain. All right, this is actually a really sophisticated question, and whoever wrote it should be proud of themselves. So since Splinterlands is going to run its own set of validators as a Hive sidechain, And so even that, I don't think is quite true. What we're hoping to do is have a layer one that's chain agnostic, so that as Splinterlands grows, we can have assets on lots of different chains. We look at them as sort of storefronts if you're looking from a corporate lens, or we sort of like look at it as exporting our goods if you look at that from a national lens. So that's all pretty big stuff. I'm wondering why the team initially decided to build on Steam. So EOS didn't, I don't know if EOS existed, but the smart contract platforms weren't very developed at the time that we built, this game. We started this thing in 2018, and there just weren't a lot of chains. We knew we didn't want to build on Ethereum because of scalability and gas. And I don't think that even EOS was an option at the time, and maybe not even Tron. So, and we still like where we are. I mean, and Hive has it has some frustrations of being not a smart contract platform at all. And that has some disadvantages, mostly regulatory, but, from a usability, there's a lot of good stuff on here, even weird things like account recoverability, multiple kinds of keys. Like you lose your keys on Ethereum, you're freaking toast and everything's gone. You do it over here on Hive and you actually have a chance to recover your assets. And it's just not a lot of options or things that exist like that. So what are my views on the other ones? I'm a heretic. I don't think they can scale. And even if they can scale, it won't be enough because they do smart contracts on the layer one and then they're open-ended. And I think it's really hard to fit all of human ingenuity through one set of servers. And so I like layer two stuff, and I like layer two stuff that interacts with commercial scale servers. I might be a heretic for saying that, but ultimately I'm agnostic. I'm not indefinitely wedded to Hive. Splinterlands at some point may move. It may not. As long as it makes the most sense, we'll be here. And if things are radically different or better somewhere else, then we might look. We want what's in the best interest of the gamers. And if the gamers feel a certain way, we might change what we do. So, my goal is to build layer one tools that are agnostic and layer two tools that can scale to millions and millions of people and tens of millions or hundreds of millions of transactions. So I think that answers your question. Will licenses need to be physically held in the account running the node in order to receive the rewards, or will one be able to delegate? I think we'll have delegation. I think it'll be live, but I don't know if that's V1, but we've been talking about delegation nearly since the beginning. Will licenses be tradable from day one, or will we need to wait for Q4 for the full release? You'll need to wait for the non-card market, and we'll have to have these NFTs operate there. Is there an exact date raked rewards changes will go live? The date has not been set, but I believe that is scheduled for May. Bot account types. We derive from Gold 2 Battle Log. There are about 60% of daily active accounts from 400 are either bots or card rental accounts, which means 240,000 accounts are contributing very minimum to the ecosystems besides taking out. What ratio number does SBL team? Man, I'm having so many hiccups. Give me a second here. What ratio number does SBL team has on the daily active bots rental accounts? What do you expect that the new reward system will drive the ratio to? And what is the expected ratio for the sake of the ecosystem healthy from the Splinterlands team? Well, I'm not certain that just because they're bots that it means that they're only taking out. I mean, if they're renting cards, if they're growing their accounts, I mean, I do think you can have accounts that simply leech. But bot accounts that grow and add more cards are not bad for the ecosystem. So our general thing is and we haven't perfected it, but our general thing is, if we want to build a decentralized game, it shouldn't matter if they're bots or not. You can't have a decentralized game and a centralized authority saying they can't play. Those two concepts are basically mutually exclusive. And our goal is to make it so that as little as possible, bots have advantages over humans. And so that's the way that we think about it. I don't know the current ratio that we have in our brain. That's higher for gold than I would have thought. But again, keep in mind, to get to get there, you're renting cards. You're like getting all these cards to battle. And so, that's providing a reason to go buy all these assets and a competitive force about it. I don't know. I have no idea what the new reward system will drive that ratio to. We'll have to see what it does when it's live, but obviously our goal is to go make a lot of incentive for human players to keep engaging with the game. I don't know. That's a high priority for us. And was there somebody that wanted to kind of chime in with that question?
I mean, I can step in from the tournament side. Is that like
Yeah.
one of the big things is understanding that I think that there are times and places, you know what I mean? Like there has to be, when we talk about some esports side of stuff, bots don't necessarily have an approach there because it's just like anti-competitive, right? But that doesn't mean that it necessarily is for the entire ecosystem the same kind of a stance. So I feel like it's as far as tournaments and what we're doing for the outreach and looking at things like that, KYC tournaments are like super important to us, at least to me, as and what I'm trying to guide the tournaments in, because we don't want new players to come in and enter into a tournament and they go, oh, it's just, not real humans. But it's kind of like apples and oranges to, a ranked bot playing by themselves, right? Because that's necessarily not impacting a whole tournament to say. I think that it's really complicated and it's hard to parse out, but there's small steps being taken because you can't just flip the apple cart on it and say no bots, because then it's like, all right, well, it's not a decentralized game then. then we have to now hire on an entire QA team that's going to do the manual banning and is going to do the KYCs and all that kind of stuff. So it's like it's small bites of the elephant, I think, to making it, where is it acceptable, where does it make sense, and where is it the least damaging. In the terms of esports, it's highly damaging, so it shouldn't be allowed there.
Okay. Suggestions, requests, and just keep in mind that we have feedback.splinterlands.com. Hopefully somebody can go put that into chat there, feedback.splinterlands.com. I remember in the past there was talk of a more developed communication system directly on Splinterlands itself. I'm thinking private groups, one-on-one messages, the whole works. I'm curious the timeline on this. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to decentralize communication, bring it closer to home. Why are we still relying on Discord? As great and handy as it is, I don't trust it compared to what could be implemented. Totally on board with this. I don't think I'll ever get rid of Discord. There's a lot of handiness to be able to like pass somebody a Discord, and they're in 20 Discords. So it's like one of the networks that I want to keep, but I definitely think that there should be like a complete in-game communication system. So Wrath, if you can make that happen, ideally next week, that would be phenomenal.
We'll get it done yesterday. Yep.
All right, sweet.
If I could say just one thing on that too, especially kind of just kind of comparing communication systems too, and I think this is how. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doogie and John 2.0 over here, as we call him internally, Wrath, I guess is the username. Anyway, I think as a company, I think this makes sense to me at least. We're not really in the business of making a communication system, and as awesome as a full-on Discord kind of communication system would be in game. Discord is good at what it's good at, and that's being that a communication system. And as much as we'd like to add a lot of those things, at the end of the day, we have to take a look at the value to, I think, our players and say, does it really make sense for us to add, this big fleshed out Discordy type communication system that you can send GIFs to your Splinterlands friends and things like that, or are we a blockchain game at the end of the day? And sometimes I think that's where some of those priority items get picked as, how do we make ourselves a better blockchain game? And some of that might be a communication system. I definitely think it's a good idea, and I'd love to see it too. But I do think those are how a lot of those decisions get made internally too, is, what's part of our core focus and what's not necessarily part of that.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I don't really think the game's in beta anymore, but there's some aspects of like we still don't have every single core feature that we want, right? So like maybe not the whole game is in beta, but like land is in development. So the question becomes something like priorities of, are we developing land or are we developing the chat system? So I hear you on that and agree with that. It's about like, but I still think something along the lines of an internal way for players to communicate across this game and others that we create is going to be critical for the growth of our game and the long-term stickiness of the adoptions of the players that we get. Now, so I will flat out say that is a priority for the business, but I can't tell you where to prioritize it, right? Because I can't judge how long is that going to take. Do we have the people that can make it? Where does that fit with the other promises that we've made? And so, Wrath, put that on your radar, know that that's a high priority, but score it, figure out, how much of a benefit is it? How long is it going to take? And, do we have the people for it? And what are we already pledged to doing? And put that into the lineup. One thing that I don't always see around is boss fights. And we've been telling people for years, we're going to do boss fights, but boss fights comes after land. So like there's a list and a priority and a means to this. And sometimes it's like, what can we hack with the guild setup we have now or the tournament setup we have now? How much of this for the guilds and the brawls, like, can we get away with this? How much are the players clamoring for it? As the player noise changes, we'll change too. But I'm pretty convinced and have been for maybe 8 months that the communication system in the game is important. One version of that lives with BChat, and we created a BChat feature. I wanted to see it implemented, but it doesn't have to be BChat. It just has to be something that's like, how can a player sign in and be able to go communicate with other people, ideally in an encrypted way, which makes that so much trickier because now you're like in a browser, you have to run your own little like aspect of this code that you yourself are responsible for, not the third party game or the browser, but you are like choosing to run this thing so that, nobody can see your encrypted whatever. It gets to be like a pretty big challenge, and we can kind of hack it with Discord. But just because we can hack it with Discord doesn't mean we should leave it indefinitely off the table. And then there are baby steps that we can do of like, can we make that guild chat appear in other places and maybe, give us more like a global chat and and other chat types that are guild chat, rank chat, whatever chat. Are there like mini bits of this that we can do? What's low hanging? And really like, when we design around things, we design around economy, gameplay, and community. And honestly, what we should be doing is having our priority list for all three of those highlighted somewhere of like, this is what we think the biggest community pieces are. This is what we think the biggest gameplay pieces are. This is what we think the biggest economy pieces are. And if we're knocking off the biggest gains from each of those, I think eventually we'll get, I don't have the answer because the answer involves so many different people. But I have a general strategy. Make sure that in the list of projects, we're talking about gameplay, the community, and economy, and keeping separate lists of what are the highest priorities. And if we're doing that, we're going to go get the best and most beautiful parts of this project done in times that make sense. And actually, so what's his numbers here? Z416175, who's leading that tech modernization piece, he's going to be on next week. So when he comes on next week, maybe he can go talk about how communication might fit within that tech modernization, because that's the kind of thing that's going to go across multiple systems. So there's, even as CEO, I said, I demand this be prioritized. Holy crap, the number of discussions that then creates is enormous. So, just put it on the radar. We're going to get it at some point. I think it's super important, but not enough to go change people's day-to-day lives. But I do think as long as they're talking about community, economy, and gameplay mechanics, we're gonna get it right. And all of that, of course, has to feature into how does it all get done scalably in ways that are secure, safe, and, like just the table stakes in blockchain are higher than they are anywhere else, at least from code. I don't know. Maybe nuclear secrets or space travel, but like, there's no Web 2.0 business that's going to have any kind of the crap that we go through to the extent that we do. All right, will you make it such that if someone cancels a rental that they are able to undo the cancel if that red timer didn't run out? I don't know. If there's enough people that clamor for something like that, that's a feedback.splinterlands.com kind of thing. For guild brawls, is it possible to limit the CP range for each type of fray? You want to put that on your brain, WeirdBeard? All right. He'll think through that and figure out if that's something we want to do or not. Since the daily quest will be updated with major changes, is it possible to change the purpose of the daily quest potion? Whoa, you guys, and make it a good potion that can improve the efficiency of earning without affecting the balance. For example, reducing the chance of opening DEC or a potion in a treasure chest, thereby increasing the chance of opening reward cards. What we want is people buying your cards, and what we want less of is people buying random potions from us. So if we can put the focus on owning the highest and best cards in the game, that I think is what is going to go drive sales and push things more so than you guys giving us more money. It is better for you to pay the market than to pay us directly. So the more, I don't know, I'd rather keep what you're saying is like, hey, what about this potion that makes it so we get more rewards? And my answer is, hey, what about buying cards that make it so that you get more rewards? And that card money isn't from buying packs typically. If you're leveling up from bronze, you're buying cards off the market. I would rather see that money go into the community rather than to the business. We have enough money to operate. We're growing. Everything's fine. But if card prices go through the roof, that's how all of us, do quite well. So I'd rather direct it there. Since the validators are expected to go live in Q4, would you consider giving rewards to node licenses that participate in the testnet? Perhaps just give voucher rewards for participating in the testnet and add SPS rewards when it goes live. I think things like that are being thought through. I don't have an answer right now. I'm not personally opposed. I think that's more up to the developers to tell us, if we do that, how much time is it going to add, or how many problems does it add? Matt understands rewards and reward structure, and that's his baby. So the last thing, I put in a couple pieces of feedback, and we tweaked a couple things because of the things that I said, but 90% of that is Matt's, and I'm not here to mess with it. So I think it's probably going to be pretty good. All right, why should 100 people running hundreds of thousands of robots ruin the game for everyone else? There should be a limit of 10. If that's not enough revenue, they can invest elsewhere. This is supposed to be a fun game of rewards. Some are treating it as a liquidity pool for themselves. People that invest in the games are being screwed. Also, you can see some guilds want to take over the game itself. Just some observations. I want the game and the economy to succeed. Cheers and have a great day. Well, I don't believe in the premise. If it's one person, one account, like, you are handicapping whales from choosing to go put a lot of money into the game. Because if you can play lots of accounts, then you can not only have one whale account, but you can have multiple. And if you like this thing, why should we limit you? And more importantly, who's going to enforce that it's your 10? If you have 10 different accounts, how do I know that they're all yours? So who's going to enforce that? How are we going to enforce that? I think a little bit of this question doesn't understand just blockchain in general. And if you want a game that kills bots and is centralized, there are like millions of them for you to play. This is not one of them. We allow bots to function. We do everything we can to not give them advantages. But, we want this to be a decentralized game. And that means that we're not going to be here picking and choosing who can play and who can't. So if you want that experience, there's other places to go. And hopefully over time, you'll realize that, we're making choices that are hopefully longer term sustainable than what others are. And, there are other bot strategies than let them exist, just don't empower them. And maybe a different game would make more sense. But that's how we're doing things here. And we think it can be an amplifier, and that, it makes it so that whales can have hundreds of accounts and not just the one. And that's probably in the best interest of players. All right, it would be nice if a brief explanation was posted on how to run a validator node of Splinterlands. Surely there are many interested Splinter fans would like to support the decentralization of the project and at the same time expand their Splinterlands portfolio by requiring a license but are not technical professionals. Yeah, I can't say that this is going to be the easiest thing in the world to run, but our goal is to go keep this pretty stupid simple. So it should be in a Docker container, and if it's in a Docker container, even dummies like me can do it. So hopefully it's not that bad. It'll be like, maybe a $20 per month server or something that you do. And if you have even just limited skills, you should be able to go follow along. But they're not out yet, so that's really the limitation. It's not that we won't release it. This isn't like a ninja mine scenario. We're going to go tell everybody how to do it and make it as easy as possible, but we're just not there yet. So please be a little bit more patient with us. Have you ever considered giving staked SPS some benefits in game? For example, giving power to a player according to the SPS that player has staked, like 10,000 SPS equals 100K power or something similar. Yeah, we thought about stuff like that. I'm not a big fan because it takes away from power in the for the players. But I think as we implement rewards, there are supposed to be battle rewards for SPS. And my guess is you'll be able to earn some rewards even without staked SPS. But in order to earn maximum rewards, you'll have to have SPS at some levels. And I think that'll give more value to them and give more reason to stake them. But we're not there yet, and that stuff still has to be coded and decided on. Is there any solution for a newbie to make money from the game? Yeah, I mean, you can make money now. I think you'll be able to make more money after the rank reward changes are in place. So you should probably gather as many assets as you can now before they get somewhat more scarce when they're able to earn more. But there's probably enough. Don't listen to me. Why push and shove? Everybody, it's going to be hunky-dory. Renting cards at the start of the season for 1 to 2 days, sitting idle mid-season and renting a few cards again at the end of the season seems to be the meta for earning rewards now. 1, is this intended? 2, if not, what's the team approach to change this? There's an entire rank rewards change that's coming. It's due out by the end of next month, I believe, or at least that's what's planned, and I think it will address that. Suggestion, losing X amount of ranking points for every day of low power might be a good thing. People could do the same, but at least they would have to climb the ladder again, making it less profitable to do with X accounts. These things are all sort of in the same line. And I'm going to say rank rewards are coming, or rank reward changes are coming, and hopefully they address these kinds of things. Given that starter cards remove the reward earning potential, curious if y'all have considered offering complete rookies the chance to play with leveled up starter cards, expanding the starter card roster, the abilities unlocked take the fun factor to a whole nother level. Seems like an easy way to toss newbies some longer term bait to get their teeth sunk into the game. I would say that's a third party thing to be able to do. If you guys want to go sell, like, here's a basic account, why don't you try this instead? That's great. We don't want to do it because we don't want to be printing those kind of low level cards all the time. If we give you a higher level starter cards that are real, it just it's like in card inflation. And so that's why we don't want to do stuff like that. But that's a great idea if there's some entrepreneur that's out there that's like, hey, you want to have like a much better experience? Here are some pre-made decks that you can use. I'm all for it. All right, so cheers. Thanks for the AMA. You do a great job of keeping us informed and being accessible. Thanks. And after reading the upcoming changes, I can see you people have been busy. I look forward to seeing the changes. Always improving is good stuff. All right, so I have a little bit less time than I intended, but there we go. We've gone through the questions, gone through the stuff, and now why don't you guys get your questions out? We got 15 minutes, so give us a blast of them, and we'll put them on into the next piece. Oh, and I like this new Life Summoner by Taran. Nice job. That looks sweet.
I got a little something I'll just drop here in the chat as the questions load up. But talked with our creative coordinators, and I've actually got the full card art.
Nice.
Just the character art rather for one of the cards we're considering to share up to Matt and
drop it. Let's do it. Caveats on all this. It's not released, so don't cry if it's not here.
Correct.
All right, I'm going to go through the questions as I see them, and then when we get down there, we can talk about it. So after rewards change, will running one owned card give you less progress than running 6 owned card teams? I think it's more fun to go have. You might get higher rank with just the one. That is possible, but typically people don't do just one. If they want multiples, they'll do 2 to 5 or something. But I think that's less fun than just having all 6 at a slightly lower level. But it depends on what you're here for. If you're trying to maximize earnings or maximize entertainment, I don't know, it's different. Fat Jimmy's asking, are there currently any teams, Dev, that focus on smaller quality of life improvements, or does everyone focus on the big projects now? The guys on the call right now, they're part of the rapid deployment team. They're the guys that do more of like the quality of life, and it's all kind of around. He in particular, I'm dying for a better in-game notification to let you know when action is needed for brawls and tourneys. Submitted it to the feedback site like 5 months ago, but that sort of feels like a black hole. Things like a countdown timer to maintenance would be golden. Little quality of life improvements like these would have a big impact. Is there any focus on these at the time, or are all resources directed elsewhere? I don't think they're all directed elsewhere. It's just, there's lots of different quality of life that lots of different people want.
And one of the other things too with quality of life stuff is that it's like a Jenga tower. Just doing one small thing doesn't mean it's like, oh, I put in some code and fixed it. Like putting in that one thing can break everything else. So it makes it hard to be able to do small projects because no project is ever really small for a dev.
And that's why we keep going back to this kind of like upgraded template for Splinterlands development so that it can be more like that. So I don't know. I think it will keep getting faster and faster.
We actually did just do a bunch of notification system updates, though, that might make that particular user at least a little happy in the meantime. We just changed a bunch of the notification UI. I think it went out in the last release with better countdown timers. So things like if we're behind on blocks, when does my pack actually open? When I drag it into the well and some of those kind of things. So they're definitely being actively worked on. Some of them are done, and I do know that some of those other kind of notification type kind of quality of life updates are coming and on our docket as well. So
awesome. Congrats on the new baby. Is he named yet? Yes, he is. And thanks for your congratulations. Question. Twitter accepted Elon's buy offer. What is your take? That's extraordinary. I'm all for free speech, and I think blockchain is probably the only way to ensure it. The second best way is to actually support people that like free speech. I don't think the current owners do. They have frequently spoken about how much they want content moderation, and content moderation, they might save you from a couple bad words or mean tweets or something, but that to me is a very slippery slope. I like freedom, I like liberty, and I'd rather live in dangerous liberty than I would in a nice protected speech bubble. When will the problem of market bots that buy cards in the same block they were listed on be solved? That's on the roadmap for one of the teams. I don't know when. Is that rapid deployment? You're muted.
sorry, what was the question again? I missed about
When will
that.
the problem of market bots that buy cards in the same block they were listed in be solved?
So that's kind of a tough issue. I think part of that leads back to, if we limit someone's ability to kind of buy stuff in the same block, or are we going away from our decentralized values? But we have to come up with some solutions in, maybe limiting the number of blocks between when a card gets listed and when it is able to be purchased. So we're trying to make it more fair so that us as humans can share the same ability as bots to buy things as fast as possible. Which, yeah, I mean, there's some tough issues surrounding that again, but we are trying to make some active improvements, and I think that those will be coming up pretty soon.
Cool. Can you give more details about the next promo card, the athlete line? Could you at least tell us the sport that he or she plays? No. We're going to keep that under wraps until it's ready to launch. Can you tell us more about the plans about resurrecting the app? We hired the guys that have been working on the app. We've kind of given them greater responsibilities and brought them in. So hopefully there's more and more stuff there. Been at least 6 months now, and and it's up here several times. When will you buff Jin Renova? Yeah, that has to be done. I don't know. Put that. Let's
We're working
prioritize
on
that.
it.
Yeah, let's get that in, fellas. All right. You keep saying you would like players to play the game for fun or for hours a day. This is hard with ECR model, as you are just worse off playing more. Any ideas on how you plan to approach this, because no one plays practice? I see us changing the rank reward systems to make sure it's all incentivized. Do we have the life summoner stats yet? No, they're not, but there, credit goes to Tyler, Chris, and Alfredo, our 3 creative coordinators. I can't go into too much detail and won't, as there's plenty of magic to be added with lower innate storytelling ability, but this character art of one of the characters we company-wise are considering for proposal as one of the new rewards cards. Honestly, I don't think Aggie has seen it yet either. I have not. Dropping it here for everyone here at the same time. Oh, I thought we were going to do one of the legendary summoners. So this looks like a reward card, but yeah, we're always working on creepy cool art. Elon plus Twitter equals unstoppable force. Maybe we'll see. Get Wrath to sing an outro song. He has a beautiful singing voice and so much confidence. Is this true, Wrath? Are you a singer?
No, I am quite the opposite of a singer. That would be atrocious.
All right, I'll take that as a yes.
He's a great
All right.
singer.
Jens, would you ever consider postponing Rebellion by 6 to 12 months? Well, Rebellion's going to come when freaking after. So we're going to sell out of Chaos Legion. After Chaos Legion sells out, we'll give it some time, and then we'll put out Rebellion. So there's not like a specific day. You know, we're not promising anything. I want to make sure that like Rebellion is ready to go. I think my timeline is October. I want it ready to go in October, but that doesn't mean we're going to start selling it October. We'll start selling this thing after Chaos Legion is done. Aggie Longstocking. I'm not Pippi Long. Oh, I see it. That's a reference to the. All right, you guys are just chatting about stuff. Question: do you have a third-party place to look at safe bots for Splinterlands? Yeah. We practice safe botting. I don't know. Maybe somebody has a link or something. Yeah, I don't think we'll do 6 to 12 months period of no packs, Jens. I mean, again, part of packs is we want new people coming in. If you want a spot where no new people can come in, then go to validators, go to land. There's options for things that you'll never get more than what we say is out there. So we have like the completely unlimited things. I would tell you, put your money in those. But for like the packs, we want players to come in. So we like having a month or 3 months of like not being able to buy anything in between. But we also like people being able to enter the ecosystem, and cards are the best way to do it. So that's not the one that I think will limit that way. As most of the roadmap is describing the larger improvements coming over the next year, could we think about something similar that is more centered around the smaller things people really want to see soon, more related to gameplay? There's only one item on the feedback list in the planned status. No, we put a bunch more of these in. We can. I don't know how much of the feedback is updated, but I can check in on that. But if you give me,
I was also going to say that yes, like that for on the tournament side, yes, that's all I'll leave it as. But there's going to be an announcement sooner rather than later for something like that.
Yeah, stuff is coming. So. Question: I think that Splinterlands has a problem with moving the deadlines. My feeling is that the community is stressed about that. Can we improve communication about when new features are coming? Or if you don't know when the feature is coming, maybe it's better to say soon than by the end of next month. So we put out the first roadmap. We have a vote on Thursday, and hopefully the week after I'll have or it's not this Thursday, but it's next. So on the 5th, I'll get a presentation for the Tech 360. Hopefully by the 12th, I'll have it out to some version of it out to the community. And then every month thereafter, that should be the rough timeline. So it's monthly updates. The first one has gone out, and it's okay that you're not used to that being in a rhythm, but we'll keep putting that out. Question: can we do a season and lifetime DEC rewards leaderboard? I like that. I would put that on feedback.splinterlands.com. What else do we have here? The TJ Demigod is talking about a Splinterlands bot. So, and it looks like that thing, and maybe that's open source, but if you can read it, it's probably open source. All right, we got no more questions. I think we're done. We only have 2 minutes left, anyways. So that was pretty good. I think we made it a long way, and hopefully you guys, hopefully the community walked away from this understanding a little bit more how we make the sausage, right? So how do we work together? How do we figure this stuff out? Who asks who? Who makes the decision? How do things happen? All of that stuff is coming together. Validators will be sometime in May, probably later. I actually don't know. Anybody know the date for validators? We haven't posted that yet.
We
Yeah,
haven't.
I
We're
think we
getting
said
there.
about a month
Yeah,
from the
I
post.
think it was about a month from last week. So like mid-May to late May. We don't have the exact date, but it's coming. So anyways, guys, I really appreciate you all being here. Love to the community. Thank you for being here and being part of our community. Hopefully you've heard from some really intelligent and passionate employees at Splinterlands that understand the importance of what we're doing. And hopefully you've heard from me and just, continue to hear that I'm stoked for this project, stoked for this community, committed to our values and driving this forward, not with a heavy hand on the team, but just with a high sense of our values and our purpose, and then giving space to everybody here to complete it as they see fit. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. And we'll be back in a week. That's what I got. See you guys.